right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys, Stephane Matala, Stephane NFC on Instagram. This is a classic physique competitor that's been posting some really impressive videos. Now, people have been comparing his physique to Brazil's Ramon Dino. He's got a very similar structure to Ramon. And he's posted some very eloquent, really well-lit posing videos. A lot of them have gone viral. He's getting a lot of attention right now because on Instagram, he looks incredible. Now, the next time he's stepping on stage is about a month away. So we're actually going to see him on stage trying to qualify for the Olympia at the Portugal Pro, also known as the Mr. Big Evolution Show, which is going to be on July 9th. So about 4.5 weeks, about a month out, we're actually going to get to see Stephane on stage and see how well it translates from these social media videos and pictures to the actual competitive IFBB Pro stage. Because this is something that we deal a lot with now, kind of in the era of social media. We see these guys become these big freak names on Instagram or on YouTube or whatever. Then sometimes when they compete, that doesn't quite translate to being competitive in the pro league. But like with Michael Krizo, for example, I still think he did really well, how quickly he turned pro, how quickly he qualified for the Olympia, and even though he placed outside the top 10, I think that was a good example of somebody that looked really big and freaky on Instagram, that came over to the IFBB and did well, got to the Olympia very rapidly. I don't think his placing at the Olympia was bad, by the way. I think, for example, Ronnie Coleman, at his first Olympia, he was dead last. That was Krizo's first Olympia. But the point is, guys like Stephane, these guys that go viral, these guys that get all this attention for their physiques on Instagram or on social media, sometimes it does not translate. But we're going to find out in a few short weeks if it does. And so far, I actually have been really impressed with what I've seen. The posing routines, the actual artistic element, aesthetically, of his posing is what really impresses me. But I do agree, I can see the similarities between his physique and Ramon Dino's. So this update that you're watching right now from Stephane is about 5 weeks out. And then as far as the next open pro show that you've got the Spain show, the M Pro Classic, which is about 2 weeks away. And that's the show that you're going to see Krizo. I believe I just saw that Peter Clancier signed up for that. You're also going to see Joan Pradels. He's going to be there. Then the week after that, you've got the Orlando Pro back in the States, obviously in Orlando, Florida. And I believe that's the next show that Hassan Mustafa is going to do after the Toronto Pro Super Show this past weekend. So that's kind of what the schedule's looking like, and that's the next show that you're going to see Stephane compete at. Which brings me to my next story. So obviously, Toronto Pro just wrapped up. Iain Valliere won that show, and there's been a lot of conversation since about a number of things. I mean, Iain versus Hassan was a big topic. A lot of people felt that Hassan should have won. I was looking at the comment sections of all the Instagram posts about the results of the Toronto Pro, and there's a pretty aggressive comment section saying that they think Hassan was robbed on the majority of the posts. Now, personally, I wasn't surprised that Iain won. I was more surprised that it wasn't closer on the scorecards. If you guys watch my wrap-up video, I said this in the wrap-up video, but on the scorecards, Hassan had straight votes for second place, a unanimous vote from all the judges that he was in second at both prejudging and finals, which meant Iain had straight votes for first place at both prejudging and finals. So I thought the decision would be a lot closer, maybe a 1-point decision, even though I kind of preferred Hassan's look to Iain's. I wasn't surprised that Iain won, but a lot of people seem to have felt very strongly for Hassan, so that's why I'm kind of rooting for Hassan coming into the Orlando Pro. I hope he does pick up a win. I hope he's able to get to the Olympia, and I hope he's able to compete because he was qualified last year, but his health condition kept him out, and I think he looked incredible, absolutely incredible at the Toronto Pro. A really strong look for Hassan. But this story is about Iain, so I want to get to Iain here. So a big topic of conversation, aside from Hassan versus Iain, was Iain's chest. Now, there was a very noticeable difference in his chest. I thought it looked pretty flat, like it just lacked fullness during the Toronto Pro, but another thing that people noticed was a gap, an actual physical gap in the center of his pecs, and that's what Iain addressed in this latest video. And I actually want to say, I think that Iain's response to that criticism was a very good response. I think this was a very well-measured, well-thought-out response and a good way to address a critique. Because I really think for the most part, bodybuilding fans, when they point out something like this gap in Iain's chest, they're not saying, hey, Iain, we hate you. You have a gap in your chest. They're saying, Iain, here's an issue that we see. We want you to fix it. or at the very least address it like he did in this video. So Iain basically said here that he doesn't know what's going on, but he does see what people are talking about, and he's going to get it looked at, he's going to get it evaluated and try to figure it out, because he says he can see what people are pointing out there. So I think there is value in fan criticism, not all the time, but sometimes I think fans do notice valuable things. And I think this is one of those things that fans said, hey, look at this on Iain's chest, and now Iain is concerned about it and he's getting it evaluated. That's the outcome that we want. You don't see something like that, at least I don't. You don't see something like that and say, hey, I hope that gets worse, so I'm going to point it out. You see something like that and point it out because you want him to address it. And I think Iain does a good job of acknowledging that here, but he says he doesn't know what it is, essentially, and he is going to get it looked at. But he also does say he doesn't think it's like a physical injury, like a pec tear, because nothing happened during training or nothing that he's aware of. So I'm going to roll a brief portion of that right here.
Now, what the conversation seems to be about right now is if it's not my back, it's not my calves or something, it seems to be my chest is the newest one. So, and the truth is, I don't know. I don't feel an injury there. I don't have an injury. No injury occurred. Just like with my back, whatever that, conversation that was going on at the time, there was no injury that I was aware of. The same goes for my chest. I don't have anything there that I'm aware of. Can I see what people are referring to? Sure. But I also have pictures at different points in my career where this spot in my chest on both pecs, kind of alternating at times throughout my career, was more apparent and more prevalent than it was at other times. I have pictures from 2021 Texas Pro, hitting a crab most muscular and different most muscular variations, where you can see it on the other pec where there's a little bit of retraction in that same spot in the center. I have pictures going all the way back to, being an amateur, my early days in a pro, where I have it on the other pec when I'm at a certain level of conditioning. And then I also have some years where, when I'm bursting full, like 2019 Vancouver, where you can't see it. So I don't have an answer to this. I'm obviously going to look into it. I'm going to make sure that everything is good there and whatever we can do to make it look as absolutely best as possible come the Olympia, whether it's therapy work, massage work, or if there is some kind of, dying off or, lack of blood flow or nerve activation or something in there, make sure I'm getting whatever work needs to be done. If it's stem cells, massage work, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on there. But I can tell you don't feel any injury. There was no injury that occurred during training or anything of the sorts. But obviously my goal as a bodybuilder is to always improve. And if this is something that is, a small flaw in my physique that we can see, we obviously want to make it better. I appreciate that everyone cares enough to, show a level of concern for what may be going on in my physique.
Now, I did want to show, I saw another comparison because this kind of did bring me back to an earlier era of the NSP channel where we talked a lot about the pec gap. There was a whole period of time, I think it was like 2017, and the Scott Steiner thing kicked it off. And I saw on that Fernando Arroyo Instagram page a side-by-side of that infamous Scott Steiner photo in Iain's chest from the Toronto Pro, a screen grab from that show. Now, obviously, I just want to say, I think this is clearly an extreme comparison, and by no means do I think Iain has a comparable situation to what's going on with Scott Steiner. And back then, we found that there was a lot of wrestlers with this same issue, this pec gap phenomenon. Kofi Kingston, Chris Jericho, Scott Steiner, just to name a few. And I think the running theory was, at least for wrestlers, that this was caused by micro traumas to the chest specifically, but from an outside force, like an actual impact to the chest. And I think the main theory was from chops. One of the things that wrestlers do, I don't know if you guys have ever watched pro wrestling, but they get chopped in the chest a lot. And you started to see with these older wrestlers, like Scott started to develop it in his late 40s, Chris Jericho also in his 40s, Kofi Kingston, I think he's around 40. But I think the main running theory there was that after being chopped in the chest in that same spot for decades, they started to develop some nerve damage and some atrophy in that spot from these micro trauma impacts to the chest. And that would create kind of a inhibitants for blood flow and not let that part of the muscle develop correctly and it become atrophied. Now, it seemed like it was a little bit more difficult to figure out what was going on with bodybuilders specifically because they're not taking impact to the chest, unless they're really going hard, like bouncing the bar off their chest when they're bench pressing or something. But with bodybuilders, there's really no impact like that, like you see with the wrestlers. So the theory was maybe there's some kind of micro tears from repeated heavy weightlifting or just repeated breaking down of the chest muscle when you're working out. I think that theory was a little bit more of a stretch because you can really draw a much more clear correlation with the wrestlers and the outside impact causing that damage. So it's a little bit harder to say what causes it with bodybuilders. However, I'm certainly excited to read some of the theories in the comments of this video because I'm sure some people have some ideas as to what could potentially cause it. And I know people talk a lot about Iain's back. He's kind of got a similar thing to what you're seeing with Big Ramy that some people say is nerve damage or atrophy, just the way his lats look like they're getting higher up and that mid to lower back area looks a little bit atrophied. I can see what people are saying with that. Obviously, in the past, the conversation has been his calves. Could this be some kind of genetic thing? I don't know. Now, next up in the news, we did get a series of physique updates of Michal Krizo looking pretty insane from his coach, Alexander Hloblik. I hope I'm not pronouncing that wrong, but I'm sure I am. And again, this is just a couple weeks out from when we're going to see Michal Krizo take the stage again at the M Pro Classic in Spain on June 18th, where he's going to be trying to re-qualify for the Olympia, and he's going to have a little bit more time this time around to actually prep specifically for the Olympia, because if you guys remember, it was kind of close last year, the time that he turned pro, qualified, and then turned around and started his Olympia prep. Now, if he's able to qualify in June, he's going to have a pretty good amount of time to focus specifically on his Olympia prep. I think, honestly, Krizo has some of the best arms in delts, I think, in the IFBB right now. He really has to be in the top 3, maybe. As far as his biceps go, his front double bicep is out of this world. And I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do here at this Spain show. I think, honestly, he's going to be the favorite to win, of course. Like I said, right now we know of Joan Perdels, and we also know of Peter Clantier, who just posted today that he's doing it for sure. We're probably gonna get the competitor list next week. Now, the final story that I've got for you guys today: Logan Franklin confirms his comeback. His next show is going to be at the Texas Pro, obviously classic physique. So we get this physique update from him where he's looking like he's putting some size back on and getting back into shape for this show. And I guess it's been over a year now, right, since we've seen Logan on stage, because he had to sit out the Olympia last year. I believe he had some kind of illness at the last minute. So I'm excited to see him come back. He was one of my favorite classic physique guys. I want to see him do some damage, qualify at this Texas Pro, get to the Olympia, and hopefully be somewhere in a nice, solid position in that top 10. But we'll see. So that's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe, click the bell notification, all that good stuff. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power, my Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power, my secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.